So hello and welcome. So in this session we'll be having a look at Azure Files. So Microsoft is offering a wide range of storage portfolio services and one of them is Azure Files. So Azure Files are fully managed file shares in the cloud. There are two things over here. One is fully managed and other is the file share. The fully managed means Microsoft is going to take care of the storage boxes that are there in the Azure data center. Okay, the disk failure, the firmware upgrade, everything Microsoft is going to take care for the storage boxes. So what we are going to do, we are going to create the storage space. We are going to create the storage space and we are just going to consume the storage. Okay, we are just the consumer. So what is a file share? The file share is a common location for multiple people. Let's say there are 100 employees in the company and those 100 employees in a company wants to store their files and folder at the common location. So they will be using the file share for storing the data. So how we can access the file share? The file share can be accessed with the UNC path, which might look similar like this. Okay, // server 01 / finance. So inside this finance we can have multiple files and folders, and this file share will be accessed concurrently by multiple people at a time. Okay, so how are we going to access? What all protocols are required for the access of this file share that will be created? So there are two protocols. One is the SMB protocol for the Windows and network file system. This is for the Linux. This is for the Windows. SMB is for the Windows. So what are the ports that are required to be opened for SMB protocol and the NFS protocol? So port number 445 is required for the SMB protocol, and for the NFS there is a port number 2049. Okay, so if these ports are open, between your machine and the file share, then only you will be able to access the file share. Otherwise you can't access the file share. So this is a mandatory thing. So Azure Files can be mounted concurrently by cloud or on-premise. So let's say we are creating a file share. Let's say we are having one PC is there in the cloud. Okay, this is a Azure VM, and there is another VM that is there on-premise. So what we can do, we can concurrently map the file share on the Azure VM as well as on the on-premise computers. Okay, so people who are using the on-premise can also write on the file share, as well as the people who are using the Azure virtual machine can also write on the file share. So SMB Azure file shares are accessible from Windows, Linux and Mac OS clients. And there is another file share, that is a NFS Azure file share, that are only accessible from the Linux or Mac OS clients. So there is a difference. So like if you go on the Azure portal, you will be asked for the file share creation. So if we click on the file share creation, we won't be asked, do you want to use the SMB protocol or do you want to use the NFS protocol? We won't be asked by default. Okay, we won't be asked by default. We will just be provisioning the file share, that's it. But if you want to get the NFS Azure file shares, so for this there are some steps that we need to follow. There are some commands that we need to run for getting the option for creating the NFS Azure file share. Then only we will be getting the option. And NFS file shares can be used only from Linux virtual machine as well as Mac OS clients. That's it. No Windows. But SMB Azure file shares can be accessed from Windows, Linux as well as Mac OS clients. So additionally, SMB Azure file shares can be cached on Windows servers with Azure File Sync for the faster access. So Azure File Sync is a different topic. We won't be covering the Azure File Sync in this session. So we'll have a different session for the Azure File Sync. So what is the lab we are going to do? So for the lab, we are going to first create the resource group, and in this resource group we are going to provision the virtual machine. One virtual machine will be the Windows virtual machine, and another will be Linux virtual machine. In step number 3, we are going to create the storage account. Why do we need this storage account? This storage account is necessary so that we can create the file share. If we don't create the storage account, we cannot create the file share. That's why storage account is mandatory. Step number 4, anyways, we are going to create the file share in the storage account. And in step 5, we are going to mount the file share concurrently on Windows as well as Linux virtual machines. And in step 6, we are going to create the folders and file in the file share from Windows and Linux machines. So what we are going to do, there is a Windows virtual machine and another is Linux. So these virtual machines we are going to create in a Azure cloud only. Azure. And what we are going to do, we are going to access the file share from the Windows as well as Linux. And we are going to create the folder. Okay, we are going to create the folder on this file share. And we are then going to create the files inside the folder. So after I create the file from the Windows virtual machine, I should be able to access the same file from the Linux virtual machine and see the data. Okay, so now let's proceed to the lab. So now I opened the Azure portal. Now let's create the resource group. Click on the create. So I will be giving the name for the resource group as file share RG, and the location I'm going to select as East US. Create. Alright, now my resource group has been created. We will now create the virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. Click on create virtual machine. The resource group I am going to select as file share RG, that is there in the East US, and the VM name I am going to use VM01 Windows. The region I am going to select as East US and Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition, 16 GB admin. Okay, username admin user 01 and the password I am giving. And the inbound port 3389, this is for the RDP for logging into the virtual machine after it has been created. So I will just select the default options for the disk networking and just review and create. Click on create. Alright, now Windows virtual machine deployment is in progress. Let's go and create the Linux virtual machine as well. Click on create virtual machine. So I am going to use the Ubuntu operating system for the Linux. The resource group I am going to select as file share RG, virtual machine name VM02 Linux. Location I am going to keep as East US itself, Ubuntu, and the password. Username I am going to keep 01 and the password. Now I am going to keep this port number 22 open so that we can log in into the virtual machine once it is created. Do plus create, and then let's wait for the validation to get completed. Okay, now click on the create button. Alright, the deployment of the Linux virtual machine is in progress. Now let's go and create the storage account. So why do we need the storage account? We need the storage account so that we can create the file share inside the storage account. Otherwise we won't be able to create the file share. So the storage account I am going to create in the same region, and this resource group is file share RG, and the storage account will be in the East US region itself. And the storage account name I'm going to give as social storage testing 18. So this name should be the unique name in the world, otherwise you won't be able to create the storage account. And I'm just selecting the default options for the redundancy and other things. Just click on the review and create. Click on the create button. Alright, the storage account deployment is in progress. Let's go and see whether the virtual machines are running. Okay, my Windows machine is currently running. Let's wait for the Linux virtual machine to have the running state as well. Let me check the job. Okay, the Ubuntu virtual machine has been created, I guess. Let me refresh. Okay, it takes some time for the status to get refreshed on the screen. Okay, our storage account is also created. Okay, so Linux virtual machine is also in running state. Now let me log in into the Windows virtual machine as well as the Linux virtual machine. So for the Windows, I am going to do the RDP session. Click on the connect, RDP, download the RDP file. Enter the credentials, admin user 01 and the password. Okay, now let's see what all drives are available on this virtual machine. So I can see there is a C drive and there is a D drive, that is a temporary storage. So what we are going to do, we are going to map the file share on the Windows virtual machine. So for that we need to create the file share inside the storage account. So let me go inside the storage account. On the storage account, and we will be able to see the storage account that we have just created. So this is my storage account name. Click on the storage account name and then scroll down, and you will be able to see the file shares under the data storage. So as I said that Azure is offering wide range of storage portfolio services, and one of the service is the file share, and you can see there are lot many other services as well. So we are going to just concentrate on the file share in this session. So click on the file share. Okay, so now click on the file share. Now give the name as admin. Let me give the name as file share 01, and I'm going to keep the default option, that is the transaction optimized option. Depending on the requirement, you can choose as per the option that is suiting your requirement. So I am just selecting as the transaction optimized, and then click on the create. So now we can see that 5 terabyte file share has been created, but we are just going to use the 100 GB from this quota. So I will be just changing the quota to 100 GB. So now quota has been changed. I will be clicking on the file share 01, Then I will click on the connect. So once I click on the connect, I will be getting the PowerShell code. So this PowerShell code, we need to copy this code, go inside the Windows virtual machine, and then just paste it so that our file share gets mounted on the Windows virtual machine. So you can check the drive letter. I am just going to keep the Z as my drive letter. I will just copy this code. So first thing on the line number 1, what we can see is that it is just testing the connection. It is testing the connection with my file share that I have just created, and see the port number. This is the SMB port number 445. What it is doing, it is first checking the connection whether it is able to reach the file share from the Windows virtual machine. If it is not able to reach the file share that we have created, we won't be able to map this file share. So let me copy this code, go inside the Linux virtual machine, and I will be pasting this code in PowerShell window. So keep an eye on the left hand side. We'll be seeing the file share once the code gets executed successfully. See, it is just doing a connection test, waiting for the response. It is now checking whether it is able to reach the file share. Yes, it is able to reach. Press enter. Okay. Now, as you can see, the file share is mounted on my Windows virtual machine. So this is the 100 GB file share that we have just mounted. Let me go inside and then create one folder. And one file I am going to create. 01, and I am going to write some data. This is written from Windows. Save it. And now what we are going to do, we are going to connect to the Linux virtual machine, because we need to map this file share on the Linux virtual machine as well. So let me check what is the public IP of this Linux virtual machine. So the public IP I'm going to copy, and I'm going to do a putty session to the Linux virtual machine. Click on accept, admin user 01 and the password. Okay, I am inside the Linux virtual machine, and let's check what all drives are mapped over here. See, we can see that there is no file share mapped over here because we have not done any configuration on the Linux virtual machine. So what we are going to do, we are going to go on the Azure portal, and then we are going to go inside the storage account, click on connect, then select the Linux option. So this is the bash code that we are seeing. So we'll just be copying this bash code and just pasting on the Linux virtual machine. Okay, now let's check whether the file share has been mounted. See, as you can see at the last line, we are able to see the file share has been mounted at this location, mnt/file share 01. So let's go inside this file share, and we should be able to see the folder that we have created from the Windows virtual machine. Let me check the folder. Yes, I can see the folder. Let me go inside this folder and the file. Okay, the file is also visible. Now let me open this file, and I'm going to write from the Linux virtual machine inside this file. Linux escape write and quit. Okay, now let's go inside the Windows virtual machine and see whether the changes have come. Okay, this is the file, right? File 01. Yeah, I can see the changes. So This is how we actually map the file share on the Windows as well as Linux virtual machine. So that's it for this lecture. Goodbye.